Welcome to Before the Score, episode number 33. Pablo Hernandez asked me, why am I wearing sunglasses?
Steve, actually,
I'm wearing
why are you wearing
sunglasses because the New York
sunglasses?
Rangers' future is bright, baby. Number one pick, draft lottery. The Rangers have rebuilt better than any team in history, baby. New York Rangers do it right. Oh, my God. Andrew, tell me a little bit about who we're picking. Alexis Lafreniere.
Alexis Lafreniere is probably the best prospect since I'd say McKinnon or Austin Matthews. I mean, you see the last 2 years with well, not the last 2 years, but recently with Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes and Capo Caco, these top two picks and stuff have been a little bit underwhelming in the NHL, so they need this megastar number one pick, which the NHL's been lacking. And to get it to a team that honestly could have made the playoffs in a full season like the Rangers did last year, it's a little bit unfair for the teams like the Devils that are horrible and kind of deserve that number one pick way more. But, I mean, good for the Rangers, good for hockey. It's the best market he could have fallen in, so good for them.
Yeah, to all my Devils fans, friends, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, they cannot compare to this man, Alexis Lafreniere. And I know that you guys must be very distraught about this, but the Rangers, we have rebuilt. Oh, we are back in the Rangers dynasty. It won't happen next year. I'll be a little realistic. It's not going to happen next year, but the Rangers dynasty is on the way. Pablo, what are your thoughts?
Well, number one, Steve, obviously, we all know what my number one sport is. Obviously, it's been well known and well documented on this podcast. But, when it comes to hockey, I do enjoy the Rangers. I do root for the Rangers. Come playoff time, the Rangers are the team that I do hope succeed. Obviously because, they're the team that I have chosen. I'm not that big into sports, but, or I'm not that big into that sport. But all I have to say is right here I have a magic 8-ball. So I'm going to shake this up. And is there any question you'd like to ask? Oh, Mr. Magic 8-ball.
Let's ask Magic 8-ball. Was the lottery rigged? Because there are some people who think it was.
Ask again later. That's coming from the 8-ball.
That's
Ask
an
again
open-ended
later.
answer
Know,
right
man.
there. Is it later yet? Should we ask again?
It was rigged. We're going to get some
let's ask again.
investigation.
All right, ask again.
Was the lottery rigged
Ask again.
yesterday? Magic 8-ball. Give us an actual answer this time.
It is certain.
Okay.
Ooh.
I don't care if it was Patrick Ewing when David Stern froze the envelope. This pick had to go to the Rangers because you couldn't have this generational talent go up to Canada again and the NHL get screwed out of the marketing for this guy. The last generational talent to be in the U.S. was really Sidney Crosby, I guess Alexander Ovechkin. But in the last 10 years, you've had Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, McKinnon.
McKinnon is U.S., I'm saying.
Okay, I'll give you McKinnon, but Colorado Avalanche, that's not a market. You need them in
It's the Canada of the U.S.
Yeah, you need a major market here. And that is why having McDavid and having especially Matthews, a U.S.-born player who is going to lead the U.S. team for years to come, these guys need to be in big markets in the United States to grow the game of hockey even bigger than it. It's not that big in the U.S. right now, so it needs to grow bigger. And that is why this pick is perfect because it goes to the biggest market in the U.S., New York City, New York Rangers. If he brings a cup back, he's a superstar.
Do you want to know something that's actually pretty funny to me, right? So when you talk about the Rangers and all, yeah, they got the number one overall pick. It's great for the Rangers. But I think it's funny because when you look at the other sport in town, you look at the New York Knicks, this is something where every year they hope to get the number one overall pick. It doesn't happen to them, but it happens to the team right next door, the team, oddly enough, with the same ownership. So to me, it's so ironic, and things could just never go right for the Knicks. Just another
one
nail
team
in the
that
coffin.
did have a chance at that first overall pick in the lottery, but didn't get it, was Andrew's Winnipeg Jets. So, Andrew, were you disappointed when the Winnipeg Jets were not the ping pong ball that came up?
I mean, listen, if this theory that it was rigged was true, then the Jets never had a chance to get Lafreniere anyway. So to end up with the 10th pick, it's still not bad for a team that qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, I mean, I really can't complain with the 10th pick, but I'm not happy. No Canadian team should be happy that it got rigged for New York.
Listen, we're going off the Magic 8 Ball now. The Magic 8 Ball was certain that it was rigged.
Magic 8 Ball has spoken, so it's the truth now.
Well, let's move on from the lottery now. And the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs have started today. I know that the game right now is in double overtime, the Lightning and the Blue Jackets. But Tarek Alcassi, we have a question from him, actually question of the day. He wants to know, who do we think is the team to beat in these NHL playoffs?
I mean, right now you look in the East and you see the Boston Bruins as one of the best teams in the regular season, and they haven't. There's no reason to not expect them to be the best team in the East in the playoffs. You look at the West, you look at the St. Louis Blues, look at who am I forgetting right now?
The Golden Knights
or the Knights.
Avalanche.
Yeah, the Knights, the Avalanche. But I mean, of those teams, the Blues are the class of the West. The Blues are the reigning Stanley Cup champions. The Blues have arguably the best defense in hockey. They have Bennington playing out of his mind still. So I think the team to beat in the entire league is the St. Louis Blues right now.
Pablo, your pick, your Maple Leafs, they got eliminated. You got to pick a new team to win the cup now.
Well, honestly, you took my pick, obviously, with the Boston Bruins. But I got to look at another team that's been very, besides a loss the other night, I got to go and look at the Colorado Avalanche. This team has been looking absolutely unstoppable, like a force to be reckoned with in these Stanley Cup Finals playoffs. So I do think that they are going to be a team that's going to be very dangerous, and a team, especially in hockey, where anything could happen. I think a team like this, they got those little kinks and quirks out of the way in the beginning of the home stretch, but I do think that they're going to be very.
Now, this is going to pain me to answer this question because I know this is the freaking answer that the kid's looking for. But the team to beat right now in the playoffs is the Philadelphia Flyers. They are one of the best coached teams left in the entire league, with Alain Vigneault. Knows, because I know that way too well because he was the Rangers coach, and they have a veteran team with Kevin Hayes, Claude Giroux, great goaltending, all stuff that you need in playoff situations. And they've been the hottest team in the league over the last – you go back to the couple months before the stoppage, and now they won Red Robin rounds. They're going to be the 1 seed. They have a cupcake matchup against the Canadiens in the first round, and don't give me that BS. The Canadiens deserve to be there because they won the play-in round. The Canadiens suck. The Canadiens absolutely suck. And the Flyers are going to wipe the floor with them. So I think, as much as it pains me to say it as a Ranger fan, and we just had such a great segment about the Rangers, the Flyers are the team to beat in at least the Eastern Conference right now, I believe.
I mean, that's just playing the hottest hand. They don't have the best roster on paper. I mean, we got the cupcake matchup with the Canadiens, so you have to expect them to at least advance in that round. But I want to see how they stack up against, say, the Lightning or the Bruins or the Capitals first before I buy into the Flyers.
Well, it's early right now. Let's get before this playoffs technically started already, but let's get the playoff predictions. Who's going to the Stanley Cup? Who's winning the Stanley Cup?
Now, obviously, you can go the cupcake, the chalk answer of, say, the Flyers versus the Blues versus the Bruins. I want to go a little bit more exciting. Let's go Colorado Avalanche versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. Two explosive offenses, two teams that got hot at the right time, and that can – I know the Lightning were one of the best regular season teams in the league last year and then lost to the 8C Blue Jackets. But new year, they have one of the most talented rosters in hockey. Seeing McKinnon versus Steven Stamkos, it would be an unbelievable matchup.
Well, honestly, I couldn't really tell you who's going to be the final two teams standing. But the team that I do think, regardless, I said earlier, they were going to be my original pick. The Boston Bruins are a very dangerous team, and I do think that that's going to ultimately be the team that's left standing at the end of the day.
I'll tell you what, this is the most unpredictable season in hockey history, and I know I just picked the Flyers as the team to beat, but the Flyers, they're only going to get past one round. They're going to beat the Canadiens. But they're going to lose to this team in the East because this team, the Lightning, they do not want to see them again after last year. And the Blue Jackets, they're my pick from the East, the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're riding the hot hand. They've came back. They almost blew the series against the Maple Leafs. They came back. They won. I got the Blue Jackets making a run with John Tortorella. And in the West, Oh, man, this is going to be a tough pick, and I don't know if I can even back it up, but I'm going to go with something crazy here because this team, they're led by veterans who know how to win cups. The Chicago Blackhawks are
I knew you were going to say the Blackhawks.
shock everybody. They're going to shock everybody. As the 8th seed, the team that shouldn't even be in the playoffs right now. If they can get past the Vegas Golden Knights, they're going to the finals.
Not true at all.
The Chicago Blackhawks, Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Blue Jackets win their first ever Stanley Cup.
First prediction in show history.
If it happens,
but
we'll go back here, and you're going to call me a genius.
Two sneaky, decent teams in the East that I wouldn't sleep on right now are the Hurricanes, who just made the Rangers look like the Devils, and the Islanders, who I bet to win the Stanley Cup in February. They're going to win me some moolah, so watch out for the Islanders.
I hope you're wrong about both of those, because both those teams I hope don't win a game in this round. Let's move on from hockey here. I think Pablo talked about his hockey quota for the entire year right there. Let's talk about some baseball, and this is when I'm going to take the glasses off because the future is not that bright anymore. So we'll start with the New York Mets. Marcus Stroman opted out of the season. Some may say it's a little suspicious. Andrew, I know you're hot on this topic, so what are your thoughts on this?
Now, let's take it back to last year at the trade deadline when they traded Anthony Kay and Simeon Woods Richardson, or whatever his name is, to acquire Marcus Stroman, and you thought that he was going to be Wheeler's replacement, and he ended up being Wheeler's replacement. Now, they made the move and didn't trade away Zach Wheeler in a move to kind of have a last-ditch effort to make the playoffs in 2019. That didn't end up happening. So now you say, okay, he still has another year control. So they're going to go for it in the 2020 season. And Marcus Stroman is this outspoken personality. He a little bit was underwhelming in his 10 years of Met in 2019. He had some good moments, but overall, he really wasn't the same pitcher he was in Toronto the first half of the year. So going into 2020, he was very vocal about his workouts and how great shape he was in and how excited he was to play. He was ready for the season. He would have played opening day if he didn't get hurt, but he got hurt. He's coming back, and you don't know how that rehab's going. You don't know how healthy he is. And then he opts out 3 weeks into the season. I can't fault the man for not wanting to play in a league where the coronavirus is outbreaking in multiple teams. I get that. But, I mean, it just looks bad at this time, knowing the situation months ago. If you were going to opt out and you really were concerned about your family, this is something that you would have done in in June or July, but not in the middle of August.
Well, yeah, plain and simple. Number one, Marcus Stroman, he gave up on the New York Mets. And for somebody to just, not only be coming back from an injury, to not, give the team some type of further notice, to just up in, the middle of August saying, you know what, I see the state of the league, and I'm also going to take into account that, he's also looking at Yoenis Cespedes. Yoenis Cespedes opted out. You're looking at the New York Mets, the team that has not been doing well to start the season, so I do think he took that into consideration. So this is, to me, somebody who likes to talk his talk, but he doesn't back it up. If he were really serious about this season, he would come back from whatever type of injury he had. He would come back, he would dominate or kind of pitch, very well. But that's just not the type of pitcher he is. I don't think this guy can handle the heat. I just think that he just gave up on his team. And personally, as a Mets fan, this was probably one of the worst trades that Brodie Van Wagenen has done. And, this just goes along with a lot of bad moves that he has done in his short tenure as the Mets general manager. But, for Marcus Stroman, I don't have many words to say, but,
as a Mets fan who's one of my favorite players in the entire league is Marcus Stroman. I love the way he plays. I love the fire he plays with. I was ecstatic when the Mets acquired him, shockingly, because I didn't expect the Mets to even be in the running for Marcus Stroman. But one thing that rubs me the wrong way about this is that, well, first off, like Andrew said, you can never fault a guy for opting out to the coronavirus concerns. The timing of it is just what gets me, because if he really had those concerns, I believe he would have opted out earlier in the season. And this just screams that he has enough service time this year where he can hit free agency next year. If he opted out, wasn't getting paid, it was over with, and he was going to be a Met next year, it would be different. He's opting out. He's going to be a free agent. The Mets got 11 games out of him, and I'm not a big fan of Anthony Kay. I actually like Simeon Woods Richardson much more. I don't think Anthony Kay is going to be that good. I think his ceiling is a good reliever. You can say as a Mets fan, you need a good reliever, but Anthony Kay was drafted to be a high-end starter. This guy, but for the Blue Jays, could be a good reliever. I just think Stroman. I did like the trade at the time. Still, I would make the trade again, but I think that if it wasn't for this pandemic, of course it would be different. But Stroman, yes, Pablo, I agree. Just like Yoenis Cespedes, looks like he did quit on his team in the end, and it's just a sad ending to probably Marcus Stroman's Mets career, because I really would be surprised if the Mets do re-sign him.
Yeah, the way his farewells have gone, he thanked the fans, he thanked the organization. It just seems like he's moving on. I don't know what this does to his free agent stock, especially in general. Any free agent going into next year, it's going to be the question mark over almost every player just because of how different this year is. But given the fact that he was injured to start the year and then opted out, so he missed the entire 2020 season, and it's not like he's a bona fide ace pitcher, so you don't know what his market's going to be. So he's taking a risk by opting out as well. So there's risk playing the season due to coronavirus concerns, but there's also a huge risk financially not playing at all this season and just hitting the market after not playing for over a year.
And if the Mets re-sign him, maybe it'll be a little different. Maybe if he comes back and pitches again. But right now, as it seems like he's opting out. He's going to hit free agency. He's more likely than not going to be in New York Met again. It's just not a good look. It is very disappointing. And for somebody I was so excited to acquire, and for somebody who was so vocal about how excited he was to play on the Mets, growing up a Mets fan, attending the no-hitter, coming in with all this hype, and then 11 games and you're done, it just is kind of, I know Pablo would love to say this word, kind of corny, in my opinion.
Well, I'm gonna put a little spin on this, right? Maybe Marcus Stroman, maybe his agent told him, you know what, Marcus, there is not a very strong pitching class coming up in the upcoming free agent market. So why don't we, instead of putting you out there, you know, a guy who really hasn't pitched much, a guy who would come into the season in the middle of August, let's say, and only have a few starts, not having a full length of time to sort of build up your repertoire, sort of build up your arm strength. So he might have came back and not have been that good. So it might have only hurt his value a little bit. So maybe his agent just told him, you know what, to just sit out this year, and you know you're going to go into that weak free agent class and you're going to get paid, because I do think that Marcus Stroman, regardless of all the words that I did say about him, this guy, he's a quality pitcher in the major leagues, and he is going to get a multi-million-dollar
Marcus Stroman's
contract.
agent, by the way, do you know who it is?
Is it firm?
No, it is part of LeBron James's agency group, Clutch Sports, part of Rich Paul. So you know how they do business and how they think. So I wouldn't be surprised if his agent was very vocal about him sitting out, as almost what Anthony Davis did with the Pelicans to force a trade to the Lakers. Let's talk about the Mets a little more, because misery loves its company. The Mets lost 16-4 on Monday night. 16 runs as Drupal Cabrera had a one-handed home run breaking the back of the Mets. Steven Matz looks broken. Is it time to push the panic button if you're a Mets fan?
I thought it was time to push the panic button when they lost that first game to the Marlins. You just watch this team, the eye test just isn't there. Their pitching it's a disgrace outside of Jacob deGrom. Their bullpen isn't much better. It's the same exact bullpen from last year with a much worse starting rotation. You don't have Noah Syndergaard. I know he disappointed last year, but you don't have him at all this year. No Marcus Stroman, no Zach Wheeler. Steven Matz looks even worse than he did last year. There's not even a number 5 starter on the roster right now. The bullpen, Edwin Diaz has had a nice couple outings in a row, but then again, they're not in safe situations, so you still can't trust them in the 9th. Lugo has been just as good as he was last year. But outside of that, I mean, who can you really trust in that bullpen? If your starters aren't giving you that quality 6-7 innings and your bullpen is what it was last year, that's just it's not going to work for any team.
Well, yes, definitely. I have to agree with Andrew. And, normally if it were, the regular season, we wouldn't be talking about, push the panic button, less than 20 games into the season. But to me, this Mets team just has no sense of urgency. They don't know. This doesn't look like a team that, oh, my God, we need to step things up because if we lose a few more games, if we have another few series of bad games, we could be out. We could not even potentially make these playoffs. So I do think that the Mets, they seriously need to turn it around sooner rather than later. And this is a very strange year, obviously, because of everything that's going on. You have players going down, players opting out, players going, they have to self-quarantine because they have tested positive. You have teams going on full quarantine mode because they have tested positive. So also the fact that there's a trade deadline less than, a month into the season, this is not a very usual year. So the Mets need to do something quick. They need to sort of turn things around as soon as possible.
For the Mets, every single player on this team needs to show more urgency than they have. The only players I think so far that have impressed me at all this year are J.D. Davis, Andres Jimenez, and Jacob deGrom. Everybody else can get a kick in the ass. Michael Conforto has been all right, but still, Pete Alonso looks absolutely lost at the plate, in the field, everywhere. I don't know what's going on with Pete Alonso, but he just looks like a different player than last year. And it makes you worry if he's in a sophomore slump, because it really didn't seem like this was a guy that would get into a sophomore slump. This seemed like a guy who would be the next great power hitting first baseman, and he can't even hit anything. It's a home run every now and then, and the rest of the time he's popping out or striking out. He looks horrible so far this year. He's not clutch this year. He looks terrible. Yeah. Luis Rojas may be in over his head as well. I'm not sold on Rojas right now.
Listen, I can't fault Rojas at all because you look at this roster and everyone besides Jacob deGrom, Jimenez, and JD Davis is considerably worse than they were last year besides Conforto. But, I mean, everyone on this roster, you look at Pete Alonso, and he's a guy who needs a lot of confidence in his game. And he started off the season in a pretty decent slump, and he just hasn't gotten out of it. He doesn't have that confidence that he had last year. You saw last year, and he was hitting home runs out of the gate. He got that opening day nod that really boosted his ego, boosted his confidence, and he kind of carried that the whole season. Jeff McNeil, he has 0 home runs in the year, and he's a guy who in the second half of last year was one of their better power hitters. And so you need to see more out of him. Brandon Nimmo is getting on base, but he can't hit a lick against a lefty. Rosario is batting 200. Wilson Ramos, I'm not even going to mention Wilson Ramos again in the rest of the show. Just their lineup top to bottom isn't what it needs to be to support a pitching staff that it just isn't there. That pitching staff is worse than last year, which is hard to say. And their lineup just isn't picking it up when they need them to. You see every time they have the bases loaded and a runner on third and less than 2 outs, they don't get the run in. That's horrible fundamentals. They can't small ball and they can't hit for power. So I don't know what they're going to do. So I can't really blame Rojas for the team just not executing.
I just hope that at the end of the year, the upper management needs to be changed because Brody needs to go, the Wilpons need to go, and it's long overdue. So I really hope it doesn't bleed into next year. I hope they can get this done right after the World Series is over with so they can start working on extensions, they can start working on free agency, trades, the draft, and they don't lose an opportunity to be competitive next year because it's time. It's time that they have too much young talent. This is the window with Jacob deGrom looking like the best pitcher in baseball with all this young talent. You have to win now, and it is just so disappointing to watch a team that just looks lost everywhere in the field, on the plate, pitching, everywhere looks bad. So you just need some sense of urgency because the window is going to close if you don't start making it work. Pablo, Yankees, they're looking good, but there's some bad news. I think for the first time we're going to talk about not bad about the Yankees, but some bad news on the show. Giancarlo Stanton, the man can't stay healthy. What's wrong with him, man?
Giancarlo Stanton, he is chiseled out of stone. This man, he has a perfect looking body. This guy is just honestly too strong, and I really don't know what to tell you, man. So Giancarlo Stanton, the problem with a lot of people is they expect Giancarlo Stanton, to hit 70 home runs, to drive in 200 RBIs every single year, numbers that are just obviously not realistic. So when people say that Giancarlo Stanton isn't a good major league player, it honestly bothers me because I do know that when this guy is on the field, this guy is one of the most feared hitters and one of the most feared sluggers in that batter's box in the entire sport of baseball. So it just bothers me when fans say that this guy is not very good. But the problem with Stanton that I can agree with is the fact that this guy is always hurt. Whether it be his calf or whether it be, just getting hit by a pitch and being out, or something with his shin or something with his oblique, the injuries just seem to find Giancarlo Stanton. So honestly, man, I really don't know. This is going to be, the Yankees have Stanton for at least another 7-8 years. So this is going to be a problem that I do see lingering on for the rest of his career. There's really only but so much they can do. Look, they don't even play him in the outfield. They put him at DH. They don't play him every single game. They try to do whatever they can to kind of bubble this guy. But the fact of the matter is there's nothing you can do for Giancarlo Stanton. This guy is just made out of glass. And as a fan, you're just going to have to, be grateful for the games that he does play, because when he is on the field, he is going to put up numbers. And when he is not, because we all know every single year there's going to be a chunk of games where he's not there, you're just going to have to find other ways to win.
Well, also with the Yankees, Clint Frazier was brought up. What do we expect for Clint Frazier this season?
I think we're just going to see whether or not he can field the ball. I mean, the bat has never been a question for him. He's never found his kind of foothold in this roster. They have enough DHs on the roster, with whether it be Giancarlo Stanton, Luke Voigt, anybody who they put in that DH spot. They don't have room for another one in Clint Frazier who can be grooming in the minors. But if they're going to bring him up, they need to play the man. They need to play the man in the outfield. They need to see if he can actually, handle the big stage and handle these big moments in the field where he can't make a fool of himself. As long as he holds his own out there and the bat is what it has been in the past, I think he'll be fine.
All right. So here's my take on Clint Frazier. Number one, his swing is beautiful. He's probably one of the most beautiful swings I've ever seen. But this guy, Clint Frazier, the Yankees have been playing games with this young man for many years. They call him up. He plays a few games a week. They send him down. They put him in the outfield. Obviously, he's not very good. And I really don't see much growth when it comes to Clint Frazier. I do see growth at the plate. I think this guy could be a very, very good league baseball hitter. But I just don't think the outfield is for him. But if you're calling him up, especially for a guy like Giancarlo Stanton, who is a DH, I think Clint Frazier should be doing the exact same thing. He should be in the lineup only to hit, and he should be in the lineup every single day, because this guy, he puts up numbers. The thing with Clint Frazier to me is it's either put up or shut up. If Clint Frazier, if he is up and he plays every single day and he proves that he cannot hit at the major league level, I think it is time to part ways with Clint Frazier, because I don't think it's fair for a guy like Clint Frazier to, like I said, be called up and to be sent down, be called up. This guy has no clear direction on the New York Yankees, and a team that has many DHs, like Andrew said, with Giancarlo Stanton and Miguel Andujar, and, a few days a week you could give possibly a guy like Luke Voigt or Aaron Judge a DH day. I don't think Clint Frazier fits this team unless he is in there every single day and unless he is producing like he should.
Yeah, the Yankees have plenty of depth on the bench, and Clint Frazier needs to find a role, needs to carve out a role, needs to prove he can stick on the Yankees, or they just might be better off as friends. They need to be traded. I think that the Yankees and Clint Frazier would need to just have a mutual breakup. It didn't work because as much as the Yankees love Clint Frazier, the prospect, as much as Clint Frazier loves being a Yankee, there's just no place for either of them in their lives. So I really think that Clint Frazier, he could be a good player in the MLB, but he needs a very specific role, and he needs to prove it, because this guy is a great prospect. And like Pablo said, his swing is immaculate. He has a perfect swing, and he should be a great hitter, but the man cannot field last year. So hopefully AAA or whatever he was, the alternate site, did him some good, and Clint Frazier can carve out a role, because if not, he might be more valuable to the Yankees as a trade piece than anything else. Let's move on, because college football, big news today in college football. The Big Ten canceled their season, postponed their season. Pac-12 followed, same thing. College football seems to be crumbling at the seams. Was this the right decision to make?
I think it is. I think it's 100% the right decision to make. And we talked about it on the show multiple times, how it is way more feasible that the college football season will not be played compared to the NFL season. You look at the NFL season, and their big money is from these TV deals, and they don't really rely as much on ticket sales, concession sales, whereas college football, they really need that. And just with these universities not having these in-person classes, not having anything on campus like that to justify having these football teams where you already see outbreaks happening on teams like Clemson and stuff like that, and you look at all right, so this is a little bit random, but you look at the MLB and you have guys going to casinos and stuff like that. Just imagine what these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are going to be doing. You can't trust them because if one of them you can't have a bubble with college teams. So these 20-year-olds, they're going to go out and socialize. You can't really stop them like you could a grown professional. So it's more of a risk where if one of them goes to a party or something like that and gets sick, that can really be a problem with football.
Yes, Andrew, I 100% agree. And obviously, to be a college player, you have to be very talented. But when you look at college players, they are not professional players. These guys are not professional athletes. Now, does it suck that, these guys, they work and they train and they kill their body? They work their way through high school to go to a good college, and, they want to be and they want to find success in the NFL. And it does suck, and it's not fair that they do not get a chance to, prove their value in the NFL. But at the end of the day, they are not professional athletes. So if that's their decision to say, you know what, this season isn't going to happen for your safety, I think that's the right call.
For colleges, for universities, there's one phrase sums it all up for me, and that is the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But we all know that it comes down to money, and the money just won't be there. And God forbid one player gets sick with coronavirus and say he dies. If he dies, imagine the PR, imagine the bad news, imagine the lawsuits. If you're a college university, they would be up to your eyes in lawsuits because it would be that crazy, and they would be vilified. And then people will, of course, you want football. Football fans are crazy. College football fans are craziest of all. But it sucks for amateur college athletes, but that's what they are. They're amateurs. They're not paid, at least not yet. And that cannot – they not send amateur athletes, untrustworthy college kids, as much as people will like to say they're responsible, they will be if they want to play football. It's just the money isn't there. The daily testing will cost universities too much. Teams like Michigan, Ohio State can afford it, but a team like Rutgers probably can't. So I just think, like I said, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I don't think it was ever going to happen without a vaccine or at least a less costly measure, and with fans being allowed. And it just could not happen this year. And it's very disappointing as a big college football fan specifically, but it just can't happen. And I'm as disappointed as everybody, but it's definitely the right move. Pablo, love that shirt. Let's talk some wrestling on this show today. Right now, I have to say Randy Orton is the best wrestler in the entire world, on the top of his game right now. Do you agree?
No. Randy Orton, I do love what he is doing. The best wrestler? Absolutely not. Can you say he's the best storyteller and the best seller and somebody who has taken his job to the next level? He's definitely up there, with the guys like, obviously MJF and AEW. Nobody in WWE even comes close to Randy Orton. I mean, this guy, it's almost like they take the handcuffs off when it comes to Randy Orton. They're like, you know what? We trust you. You've been in the business for 20 years. You have a legacy in this business. Do whatever you want to do. So that's something that Randy Orton, I do like about him, that he is himself. I do see Randy Orton being this type of person off screen because, to be honest, I think he kind of is. I don't see him punting Ric Flair in the head in real life, but I do think he is that type of persona. He is that type of guy, somebody you don't want to mess with.
Randy Orton is on the best run of his career. And I know WWE is not in the spot it needs to be right now, but it would be off so much worse off if Randy Orton wasn't doing what he's doing right now. he is on the top of his game. He's on the top of the wrestling game right now. And I know Raw and SmackDown and everything has not been good the last couple weeks, but Randy Orton, the lone bright spot in the WWE right now. And he has been the best heel in all of wrestling. Yes, I'm saying it. I love MJF, and I think he's 1B. I think it's 1A and 1B. Those two are on the top of their game, and they are making wrestling great right now. At least their segments. The rest of the segments, a little rough to watch, a little tough to watch right now. But if you can catch Randy Orton, you can catch MJF, you can see what they're doing. That is what pro wrestling is. That is why people fall in love with the sport of pro wrestling. Those two are perfecting it right now, in my opinion.
Well, like I said, Steve, with every great heel comes one great baby face. So there has to be some type of good guy, some type of, alpha to the omega. There has to be an ending to, this amazing run by Randy Orton. So there has to be somebody who needs to be built up. Maybe he's not even on the roster right now. Maybe he's somebody who gets called up from an NXT. But somebody eventually needs to dethrone.
Well,
Randy
I think it's
Orton.
obvious who it's going to be.
Well, number one, I do see and we're going to talk about this next week with the SummerSlam prediction show, but I think it's obvious SummerSlam, he's taking the title from Drew McIntyre.
I'll interrupt you real quick because I love Drew McIntyre. I love the run he's on. He has been another bright spot in the company, and this feud is really actually compelling. And that's the first time you can say that about Drew McIntyre's championship run. But Randy Orton needs to win the title, and I really do think that eventually the person to take that title from him will be the returning Edge.
Yeah. Now, is it something that has to happen? No, it doesn't have to happen. Edge, obviously, he was out of wrestling for many years, and if he never came back, probably nobody would have complained. But when he did come back, him and Randy Orton actually put together some really good matches. They had that greatest match ever, which wasn't the greatest match ever, but it was actually really, really good. So I do like what they have to put together, and I would like to see another match. But I do think that they need to be building new stars. They need another guy to lead that company. So I don't think they're going to do it, but I think a guy who would be perfect for taking the title off of Randy Orton eventually would be a guy like Adam Cole. Adam Cole, he's the number one guy in that company. I don't care what anybody says. He has the look, he has the athleticism, he has the talent, and the guy's just money, man.
And they stick in with Pat McAfee.
I don't know, man.
Andrew, who you got in that match? Adam Cole or Pat McAfee?
I don't really know much about Adam Cole, but I know Pat McAfee has laid down in the NFL before, so I'll take that, man.
Pat McAfee almost kicked Adam Cole's head off on NXT. That's his finishing move, a punt. So I think that's pretty ironic. But there was a video. Pat McAfee actually did look pretty good in the ring. The guy's in good shape. He's a good athlete. So maybe, and he's been training since 2014. So I'll be watching that match. I'll be interested to see how Pat McAfee does.
That's the night before SummerSlam or no? Interesting. Well, he's not the champion anymore, Adam Cole. So I don't think there's much for him to do anymore in NXT. So I do see a call-up happening very soon.
I agree with that. Let's move on from wrestling to the NBA because Devin Booker, I talked about bright futures today, and this guy has a bright future. Is Devin Booker turning into the next superstar in the NBA?
Pablo, I'll delegate this to you.
Pablo, I'll put the sunglasses on too when you start.
Well, Devin Booker, right? What team does he play for? He plays for the Phoenix Suns. And you know what? The sun is out, and the future is very, very, very bright. Devin Booker, this guy, he's an absolute phenom. Personally, I wish he were in a bigger market, a la the New York Knicks, even though I do think he would drown in New York only because the team is just so bad. So regardless, his talent would just be wasted in New York. But I would like to see what he could do in a big market like the New York Knicks. This guy is absolutely incredible. He just continues to show that he is the man year in and year out. And honestly, I don't think he's somebody who gets enough credit because of obviously the LeBrons and, the overhyped Kevin Durant's and the Kyrie Irvings. So Devin Booker, the future is bright. And Devin Booker, this is only the beginning. I do see an MVP or 2 or 3 in his
I'm
future.
keeping the sunglasses on because, like you said, like the Phoenix Suns, the future is bright for Devin Booker. And like you said, an MVP is in his future because the NBA, kind of surprisingly, I guess, is giving out bubble MVP awards. So I think Devin Booker will at least win the bubble MVP award. Probably going to be shaped like Bubble Buddy from SpongeBob, but that's the award Devin Booker's going to get at least. And I think a real MVP will be in his future one day because this guy is just insane in this bubble. He's been amazing. He's outshined Damian Lillard, who I didn't think anybody would outshine him in this bubble. So Devin Booker, that's my boy. I hope he comes to the Knicks one day. But right now, for now, his future is bright, and he is a superstar, and he will be for a long time in this league. Football, baby. We're talking about football. I got one thing to talk about football today, and it's about Russell Wilson and his new alter ego. So Russell Wilson wants to go by, and I'm going to say it like Russell Wilson said it because I have to. He says he wants to go by Mr. Unlimited. Mr. Unlimited. So that's Russell Wilson's new alter ego. What do you think?
I hate it.
Well, Russell Wilson, obviously him and I go way back. He plays for my favorite team in the National Football League, the Seattle Seahawks. He is a former member of my other favorite team, the New York Yankees of professional baseball. This guy, I do know that he is obviously a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the NFL. So whatever this guy wants to call himself, that's perfectly fine because he can back it up. He has a ring. He should have 2 rings, but I'm not going to talk about that on this podcast today. So you know what? If this is something that he wants to bring up kind of, to get people to talk about him again, that's fine with me. Is he weird? Absolutely. Do I really care what he's doing? Not really, because, that's him, man. Who am I to tell somebody else what they want to do?
Andrew, you don't like Mr. Unlimited?
No. See, Russell Wilson is like a phenomenal NFL player, but his personality off the field is very, very normal SpongeBob-like. He's very I don't know. He just seems like kind of a corny guy. So I don't like that slogan. I'm not even going to pronounce how to say it like he does, but that video is very cringy, and he has a pretty cringy personality, but he's a hell of a player. He's a millionaire. So
yeah, Russell Wilson is, ever since he started dating Sierra again, first off, how much different could you get? Russell Wilson and Future. I don't know how that happens. But Russell Wilson, he went Hollywood, and usually when they go Hollywood, they start dressing crazy. They start acting crazy. And for Russell Wilson, he just turns into normal SpongeBob. He turns into Mr. Unlimited, and he turns into the corny dad.
Well, Sierra, right? She went from somebody who nobody can understand in Future to somebody who now Mr. Unlimited. I mean, he's honestly talking some type of gibberish, some type of foreign language that we don't understand. So maybe that's just her thing. Maybe she just takes normal, average human beings and just turns them into people we just can't understand. So honestly, plot twist here, it's Sierra's fault.
That's an interesting conspiracy theory to go with. Piggybacking off that, do you think that people should be able to give themselves their own nicknames?
No. No. I mean, technically you could, but no good nickname was ever given to themselves.
You didn't like Mr. Big Chest by Antonio Brown?
No. Listen, I don't know. I'm sure it's happened before where someone gave themselves a nickname and it stuck, but it's an unwritten rule.
Personally, I think it's fine. I don't think it makes sense if you're the biggest guy, obviously, to be, let's say, Aaron Judge, and they call you, hey, Minnie, what's up, Minnie? What's up, small guy? To me, that's something that's dumb. So I do think that names like that where they do kind of poke fun at you or they try to come up with a name that's very ironic, that should come from somebody else. It should not come made up from yourself. So in that ways, I do think so. But let's say your name is man, I can't even think of a word right now. Let's say your name is Robert and you want to be called Bobby, Obviously, that's a standard name, but that's something where you could be like, you know what, man, don't call me Robert. Call me Bobby. That's the name I want to be called. But I don't know. I really don't know if I'm making sense. But
Well, I'll tell you, you're not making any sense right now.
I'm not following you.
You're kind of just
You're going from
low.
you're calling yourself Bobby instead of Robert to calling yourself Russell to Mr. Unlimited. There's a big difference there.
Big difference. I don't know if Mr. Unlimited will catch on, but, seeing the way it pisses people off, I kind of hope it does now. I think it'll be funny. To finish up the show, one final thing. We're going to talk about politics. Of course, Joe Biden picked his vice presidential campaign running mate today with Kamala Harris. So which athlete, if you were running for president, would you pick as your vice president?
Pablo.
And Pablo, don't you dare pick DJ LeMahieu because I wouldn't vote for you too.
DJ LeMahieu.
For politics, if we're being honest here, I'm taking LeBron James. Everybody knows who LeBron James is. LeBron James, he has a type of demographic that a lot of people gravitate to. So I do think LeBron James is the answer. He's the most popular athlete, at least in the United States. So I do think that if you're looking for a presidential running mate, I do think that it is LeBron James.
Andrew?
No, this is a tough one.
Andrew's deep in thought.
Because you can't pick – I completely disagree with Pablo saying LeBron James because you don't want your vice president to be this big influential guy. You want someone that, makes you look good, So give me a guy like –
First, I mean, if you're going to say, hey, I don't want the vice president outshining me, okay. Well, you could also be home and saying, man, I should have taken LeBron James because if I had him, we would have been in the White House. So you got to get there first before you can start saying, hey, he's bigger than I am.
Fine. All right. Okay. Fine.
Well,
Get someone who's very popular, but fine. Give me Lionel Messi. Okay. Listen, hear me out. It gives me the international support. It gives me the support abroad. It gives me, he's not the tallest in stature. He makes me look bigger. I don't know. I don't know what else you want. What else you want more in a vice president?
I don't even know if Messi can legally be vice president. I don't know. Do you have to be born in the U.S. to be vice president? I don't even know.
I thought I was just president. Disregard that then, okay? I will find a short United States soccer player.
For me, serious pick, I would probably pick Chris Paul. I think that guy's been great, well-spoken. He's the president of the NBA Players Association, so I think that's a good pick. If I wanted to pick somebody who would fit American politics, so crazy son of a bitch, I would probably pick Kyrie Irving or Antonio Brown because they would definitely make me look.
Antonio Brown, brother, come on. Antonio Brown with all his past allegations and
so exactly, he's perfect.
That's bad. Nothing has ever happened to LeBron James. I mean, at least my candidate makes sense. My candidate is sort of beloved unless he kills your team. So I don't think your answer even makes any type.
But that's exactly what it is. American politics hasn't made sense in a couple years. So I think that Antonio Brown might be more likely than LeBron James at this point. Even though LeBron James definitely was going to be my pick, but you stole it from me.
I do think this is a very good question to ask on the Instagram page. So
yeah, look out for that on the Instagram page. That'll probably be asked this week now that you forcing my hand on live podcast.
My pick to Clint Dempsey.
Clint Dempsey, he'd be the first rapping vice president of all time. And he'd be the first one to ever score a goal in the World Cup. So that's a good choice there. But I think that's all we have for episode 33 of the Before the Score podcast. Remember to look on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. Subscribe, like, share our page. Shout out Dan. Good luck on your internship. We missed you this week. 33. See you next week for episode 34, baby. Before the Score.